Playing Mr. Dropstone.
You're really playing the Caro-kann? No!
Welcome back and hello Caro-kann players. Last video was the overview of the Caro-kann. We talked about why the Caro-kann is one of the most solid opening defense in chess history against e4. But today we're talking about the move almost everyone plays against it and actually is the best move recommended by the computer. The move that says, I'm not afraid of your structure, I'll be taking the space you offered me. This is the advanced variation. So let's check that out, and before we do so, a quick disclaimer. The aim of this series is to pave the path for you to learn and understand the Caro-kann defense. With each and every variation, I'll be going through simple ideas and simple plans. You can always take this further to learn and understand more about the best moves suggested by the engine or the computer. Today I'm going to be showing you 4 variations. The first one is just to give you an idea generally about the advanced variation, and the following 3 would be the frequent moves you'll be facing in 90% of your games, with the last variation being the Tal variation, which if you're going to play this opening, you need to make yourself familiar not to lose instantly to white when they choose to play the Tal variation against you. With that being said, let's get started. Well, we have the board here, and we're gonna start by showing you a simple Caro-kann advanced variation. So here white starts by e4, we play c6, d4, d5, and here white chooses to advance his pawn e5, hence it's called the Caro-kann Advance Variation. And here, as we did mention in the first part of the series in the Caro-kann defense, your light square bishop always stays outside of the pawn chain. So the best move here, recommended move, is bishop f5, putting your light square bishop early outside of the pawn chain, which is how you should be playing the Caro-kann defense. And then here, for instance, black will start developing his knight, and right after you put your light square bishop outside of pawn chain, it's always the time to close the door after it by e6, and then black starts development. And this move, whenever black puts his knight here, best option that you can do is to pin it right away with the light square bishop. If black decided to play h3, which is not the best move, so white shouldn't be bothered and waste a move, because most of the time the best move here is always to trade this knight for your light square bishop. And as we've mentioned in part 1, in the Caro-kann defense advanced variation specifically speaking, the center is closed, there's little space you are working with as black, so knights are more valuable than bishops in the Caro-kann. So here white decides to take with the queen, and then there's a lot of options that you can choose from. One of them is to put your queen out early to b6, targeting or pressuring 2 of these pawns. You're pressuring the b2 pawn and restricting the dark square bishop from developing early, and you are pressuring the d4 pawn, which was protected by the knight we've traded with the light square bishop. White here decides to play this move, for instance. There's a lot of options, and then you start on development, knights to e7 and d7. Black develops as well, you develop your knight, and then white castles, you push c5. c5 is one of the main ideas in the Caro-kann defense. You always aim to push c5, and we're gonna see that in almost each and every variation when you're playing the Caro-kann. This pawn structure wants you to push c5 since your position is closed or semi-closed on the king side, and you need a little space to play with on the c file, opening it, pushing c5, and bring the rooks to the c file as well. And then there's also a lot of options here. White decides to take the pawn, we take with the knight, and you're not afraid of this move, pinning your knight to your queen, because you have knight takes targeting his queen as well. So there's no time that white takes your queen, they take your knight, and then you reposition your queen, and then white continues on developing. You also reposition your knight, opening for your dark square bishop, and then queen moves, and then you develop your bishop, and then a3 by white, and then you castle. And here's an overview of how usually the advanced variation looks like. Look at that. People might argue that black's position is cramped, but that's actually the beauty of it, that black is taking the cramped position into his advantage. The king looks really cozy, really super safe in this variation, and white is always pressured to make something happen and usually fails because the Caro-kann structure is very robust, very safe, and hard for white to make something happen. And black usually focuses on pressuring weak pawns, weak squares, and making something happen. Slowly but surely, black is comfortable and white is always pressured to make something happen. And usually they do fall in mistakes, and black is always ready to strike as all of his pieces are active. The rooks are going to be active on the c file, and easy for black to punish any mistake made by the white player. And now we get to the first variation I have for you today against the advanced variation. So e4 by white, c6, d4, d5, and e5, the advanced variation. Same thing, bishop f5, put in your light square bishop outside of the pawn chain, and white decides to go with the bishop e2 moves, speeding up the development and speeding up castling kingside without committing too much. And after that, as always, after you put your light square bishop outside of the pawn chain, it's always the time, it's always the good move to close the door after it by e6 and opening the door for the dark square bishop. And then white continues in development the knight. We also develop our knight, and then white chooses here to push c3, and then we keep on developing our knights, and then here white castles, and we always have the option to push c5 to free up the position, especially when we are controlling it by the knight and also by this bishop x-raying this square and preparing the rook move to the c file. Then white here decided to take the pawn. We took it by the knight, and then white decided to play this move, challenging, threatening light square bishop. We simply put our bishop back, and then white develops the bishop. We develop our knight. He takes, we takes with the pawn, and look at that. We have the b file open for our rooks. If white decided to trade his bishop for our knight, we're gonna develop our bishop. If white decides to push b4, it's totally fine. We're gonna put our knight back to d7 and try to reposition it. Just gonna show you some moves here. They decided to do that, and then they developed their knight. For instance, we castle, and here, look at that. Everyone would love to be black in this position. Again, while playing the Caro-kann Advance, your aim is not to checkmate your opponent. Your aim is to play positionally, strategically, and to pressure weaknesses, pressure weak squares, weak pawns, and always to put pieces on the right squares. Prepare for the c5 push, as we're gonna see in pretty much all the Caro-kann parts that we're gonna be seeing on each and every Caro-kann game and each and every Caro-kann video that we're going to be having to open up the position and to win the game eventually. The second variation and the second example that we're having today, also an advanced variation, e4 by white, c6, d4, d5, and then white chooses as well to push the pawn, playing the advanced variation. Same plan, put in our bishop out, and then we get this move. I think this move is one of the most frequent moves that white chooses to play, basically to simplify it early, to trade his bishop for our bishop. The best move here is always to trade, and then they usually take with the queen, and always after putting your light square bishop out, always the best move to close the door and open for the dark square bishop. And then white chooses to play the knight here, and here c5, always a good option to push it either early or later in the Caro-kann. And then white here chooses to defend the pawn, and then we develop our knight either to d7 or c6. Both are totally fine. The computer recommends d7, but both are totally fine and totally viable. And then white castles, we develop our knight, they take the pawn. They took the pawn right now because the knight came here and blocked our own bishop, which is totally fine. We're gonna get this pawn sooner or later. And then black plays this move. Notice this pawn is now pressured by both of the knights, and also this pawn is also pressured by the bishop. There's one move to defend both, which white found, and then we don't care, continue in developing, and then they bring the rook and we castle. And again, look at that. Black is just chilling. Black has these two pawns that can pressure, can play queen here, can play queen here, rook here, can just play b6. There's a lot of options, a lot of variations, a lot of things black can do while chilling. The king is safe. The beauty of it, black is just not pressured by making something happen, and always white will try to break in the position, will try to make initiatives. Sometimes it's risky, sometimes they mess up, and your pieces are always loaded, ready to strike. And now with the last variation that I'm going to show you today, which one of the white's weapons against the Caro-kann Advance Variation. And if black is not familiar with this move, black loses instantly. Let's see how does that happen. e5, c6, d4, d5, and then the Advance Variation. We are still putting our bishop out, and then we get this move, h4, the Caro-kann Advance Defense, the Tal Variation. If black is not careful and plays the normal move we've been speaking about, e6, that's actually a blunder, and black loses the game instantly. After g4, black realizes that the light square bishop is now trapped and there's no way out. f3 is coming and there's no way out for the bishop, and black loses a piece from the opening. Let's go back here. When you see this move, you have two options, and you need need to understand that white's plan is to trap your bishop, and you need to free this square for your bishop to retreat, either by h6 or h5. We're going to go always with h5 because it's the best move recommended by the engine, and white decides to get rid of your light square bishop, but actually we just take, best move, and then queen takes, and then we go out with a queen check on a5, and then black covers the best move by knight d2, and then open the door for our black square bishop, and the game continues from here. White develops, and here usually we develop our knight from e7 to reposition it, and here we have this counterintuitive knight development on h6, and in this position or in this situation, it's actually the best move. Usually we develop the knight in the Caro-kann defense in the advanced variation from e7, but notice that this square is weak. Notice that this square is also a good square for our knight. So adjust. Why not? When you understand the position and when you understand the squares, you understand that this move right now, which usually not the best move to play, and also there's no option for the bishop to get traded here since the knight is blocking the way. Then the game continues. White castles. We reposition our knight to this square. Really good outpost for now. And notice that white doesn't have this move to kick away our knight because of this pawn, and either way, this move is just a bad move. It's just weakening the king side for no reason, and it's hard to get this knight out of this square for now. And then black plays this move. We come here and we offer the queen trade, and if white decides to take our queen, that's actually not the best move because we're gonna also develop our knight here, and we have a lot of space to work with maneuvering our knights in the Caro-kann, especially in the advanced variation. So white knows that, and then played best move queen d1, and then black starts to make plays, starts to ask some questions. This pawn is now pressured by two pieces. White has to defend by this only move for now, and then we keep in development. We are preparing for the c5 push still. We are controlling this square by two pieces, and we are preparing to push it. And from here, as the game goes, black continues targeting weaknesses and aiming to achieve the c5 push, castling short and putting his rooks on the c-file and playing his comfortable, cozy game. King is safe, and always white is pressured to make something happen. So it's really important when playing the Caro-kann, especially the advanced variation, to understand white's goals: gain space, cramp black's pieces, launch a kingside attack, avoid early simplifications. White is basically saying, I will grab this space first and then ask you questions later. But that's the beauty of the Caro-kann, actually, is the mindset shift. Black accepts being worse on space, and that's okay, because in the Caro-kann, space is temporary, structure is permanent. The last thing I'm going to say about this variation today, the advanced variation, is white's test of courage and black's test of discipline. In the next part, we'll go even deeper. We'll break down more variations, how to survive early pawn storms, and how to punish overextension move by move. If you play the Caro-kann, this is mandatory knowledge. Like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments what scares you most about the advanced variation. See you in the next one. Bye.
Oh my god!